Yeah, morning. I think Milind, you can start.
Yes, sir.
Good morning. Today we'll have a discussion on one-round scenario of pancreatic fistula. To me, Professor Deependra Kumar Sorkar. He is Professor of Surgery at IPGM SKM Hospital. So Dr. Sorkar will take us through the scenario. Okay, Milind, please put the
Yes, sir.
scenario.
So is it visible?
Yeah, yes. Pranamita, you can read.
Um, Good morning, sir. Sir, my scenario is a 55-year-old gentleman underwent Whipple's operation for periampullary carcinoma. Today is the fourth post-op day. The drain output in last 24 hours is 200 ml. And how will I proceed to manage this patient? Well, so shall I start?
So this is the scenario, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we will go according to the way in an exam it is being asked. Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
what normally is being done, that a scenario is given and then the questions are asked. Okay. So
Right, sir.
now, so this is your patient who has undergone a periampullary carcinoma, and is the first question that I would like to know before we start off. Is this a persistent drain output or it's a new output in yesterday only? Suppose there had been a persistent output of around 100 to 150. Now today morning you have noted in the rounds that it is 200 ml. So now my first question is, how will you going to manage this patient at this point of time? What important histories you would like to know, the data you would like to know, and then we will suggest what next you will do. Okay, start.
Yes, sir. So first, I would like to take history, a detailed history from the patient about if there is any pain which is out of proportion as compared to the wound site pain that would usually be there after any surgery. Then I will ask any localized pain, tenderness, anything is there or not. Any history of fever if it is there, if it was there or has been there. Then
You
vomiting.
ask me, Pranamita, what we are going to do. I am the resident. You can ask me question. I am going to answer your question. No, there had not been any major pain except the pain that the patient had right from the beginning, and the patient was actually was on epidural analgesia, so didn't complain of any abnormal pain during any time on epidural analgesia.
Okay. Was there any history of fever? Was there
No,
in the last
no,
24 hours?
there was no history of any fever, and the temperature has been ranging somewhere between 98.5 to 99.5 at the highest level.
Okay. Was there any history of vomiting?
No, the patient never had any history of vomiting. The patient was on rice tube, and today morning I have noted the rice tube and I found it to be approximately 800 ml in last 24 hours.
Okay. So any passage of flatus has there been any passage of flatus in the last 4 days?
No, there had not been any passage of flatus in last 4 days.
Um, So after taking this history, I would like to go ahead. I would like to see the vital chart, bedside chart of patients' pulse, BP, temperature, respiratory rate, and also the drain intake output. If the urine output is adequate or not, I would like to go for that.
Let me tell you the data, the input and output has been quite balanced with a positive balance of around 500 cc. In last 24 hours, the pulse has been 110 per minute. The SpO2 is perfectly normal. There had been 3 or 4 episodes of hypotension in last 3 days, and yesterday night also patient had an episode of hypotension where it was around 80 by 60, and it was managed well by giving Voluven, and after that the patient is as such stable.
Okay, so there are few things I have noted here. One is there is a low BP, low blood pressure, low systolic blood pressure, which is a indication of cardiovascular collapse. But as of now, it is nothing very alarming because it has responded well to fluid replacement and resuscitation. Now I would like to examine the patient properly and look for any tenderness, any localized tenderness is there or not, and how is the wound, the status of the wound, if there is any discharge from the wound. I will also examine the color and quality of the drain fluid that has come, and apart from that, any I will also, yes, I will examine the patient for I will auscultate the chest. I will look for any, if there is any chest infection, respiratory tract infection is there or not, because the patient will, with a prolonged surgery, might land up with this. And I will look at the calves. I will see for if any DVT is there or not. I will rule out these all other aspects in a holistic clinical examination. So then now after that, now addressing the main problem of an increased.
Pranamita, is there anything
Yes.
else that you, I do not, let me complete the information to you. The drain had got a sort of yellowish tinge. The patient had a preoperative bilirubin of around 8, and at the time when the patient was operated. And apart from that, his chest has been perfectly normal. There had been no bowel sounds, and I didn't actually do a major rebound tenderness because I expected to be a tender abdomen on 4th day. I did a rectal examination as well, and there was no abnormality. Bowel sounds were absolutely normal. So, so this is the scenario. Now, let me start asking you questions. So everybody, you must understand that while you are being asked the scenario, do not, for God's sake, focus only on the problem that is being asked. So always begin with the way Pranamita has started. You must be able to ask the necessary questions, like how was the general feeling of the patient? What was the patient doing? Whether the patient had a good night's sleep, whether the patient had any abnormal findings, and then you focus on this. So after this discussion between the informations and the candidate, and then we will proceed to the question. Now, Pranamita, if we look at the problem that the patient had multiple episodes of hypotension, can you tell me why could there had been hypotension? Can you explain this hypotension in this patient?
Sir, so there could be many reasons to it. Starting with, I would like to, if pre-operatively the patient was already hypotensive, one point it could be that. Second thing, it could be because of the epidural analgesia. There is intravascular hypertension that develops after epidural analgesia. The other thing could be it's this major surgery with third space loss. There could be hypertension, and then coming to the main problem is with the in relation to the surgery, there could be if there is an bilioenteric if there is any bilioenteric leak, any anastomotic leak is there, the fluids, the anastomotic leak constituents are very they have a very corrosive property, and they might erode the vessels, and also and the surrounding there can be a development of sepsis and peritonitis, and this can lead to hypertension.
Okay. Now, Pranamita, if I sum up your findings again for other students who are sitting here, number one, of course, she told that there could be preoperative hypotension, but generally, if you are proceeding for a Whipple's, you would actually resuscitate the patient to an extent where you are not going to operate if the patient has persistent preoperative hypotension. The most important reason why there can be a perioperative or postoperative hypotension is because any patient of obstructive jaundice has got a reduced autonomic tone. So they are prone to persistent resistant hypotension. You get my point? So all patients with jaundice, if you're operating, they are prone to persistent resistant hypotension because of reduced autonomic tone. And therefore, if you go on giving IV fluids, it will not be corrected. The only way you can correct it is by giving a noradrenaline in a tighter dose or dopamine. Only that is going to raise. The second reason you should answer is that whether the patient had hypoalbuminemia. So if the albumin level is low, then also the patient can develop resistant hypotension. So, but you should not be correcting it in the first 48 hours because the capillaries are leaky. Therefore, the hypotension can proceed. So you have to wait for 3 days, and at the end of 48 hours, if you find the hypoalbuminemia is there, you then correct it. So 2 reasons. One is jaundice. Number 2 is hypoalbuminemia. The third reason is sepsis. Okay. So sepsis can be due to various reasons, but one of the reasons, yes, I accept, is an anastomotic leak. Though, of course, going to an anastomotic leak on 3rd day and peritonitis will not be considered as an usual phenomenon. But yes, sepsis can start if there is an undetected small leak. Clear? So either it may be sepsis or any of the reason or leading to hypotension, and hypotension leads to leak, or it can be the other way around. That means a leak leads to a hypotension. Clear? So hypotension can lead to a leak, and leak can lead to a hypotension. So it's a sort of vicious cycle. So immediately it has to be corrected. Now it has been corrected. Now let us focus only on the drain part at this point of time. So what will you look at? The abdomen is soft. There is an usual distension. The bowel sounds are normal. It's a sort of undecided abdomen. Now you find that there is 200 ml of a biliary tinged fluid in the drain. So how will you proceed in this at this point of time, only on the drain part?
Sir, I would like to analyze the drain fluid. I would send it for biochemical investigation, and I would like to see check for the drain fluid amylase content, and on the same day I will also send the serum amylase, and I would like to see if there is a pancreatic leak, or if the leak is higher up, that is there will be a pancreatic, there will always be a pancreatic leak. If there is biliary tinge is there, then definitely there is a leak, and it's a bilioenteric leak. So I will also
Pranamita,
yes, sir.
I didn't tell that there is bile in the drain. I told it's bile stain. If you are operating on a patient of obstructive jaundice, you will not find a clear serous fluid coming out. It will be mixed with the biliary stain because the patient still have jaundice on 3rd, 4th day. Okay. So you told that there can be elevated amylase. When will you consider? Because if you take the drain fluid, it might contain amylase. But when will you call it significant amylase in the drain to tell that there is a possibility of a biochemical leak?
Okay, sir. First of all, it has to be on the on or after 3rd post-op day. Second thing is that it has to be greater than 3 times the normal, the upper limit of normal serum amylase. So if that
how do you tell? You don't know the normal limits in the
so they only I will
3 times.
Sir, the day I send the drain fluid amylase, I will also send the serum fluid amylase, and I will compare it and see if the drain fluid amylase is greater than 3 times the normal upper limit of the normal serum amylase, then it is considered to be a biochemical leak.
Okay, so it is the ratio between the drain fluid and the serum amylase. If the serum amylase is 29 and the drain fluid is 110, then you suspect that there is a leak. So your answer is a ratio between the drain fluid and the serum amylase, not the upper limit of the normal serum amylase. That's not what you are looking at. Clear? Okay.
Yes,
so you find that, as I said, it's 29 and 130. So what will you suspected that there is a leak at this point of time? So what will you do?
Sir, first I will. I have already assessed the patient hemodynamically. The patient, and there is no, if there is no infection and the leak is controlled, I will just resuscitate the patient, just maintain the nutrition of the patient, and usually this is a grade A or biochemical leak as per the classification of the postoperative pancreatic fistula. This will be considered as a biochemical leak, and these usually resolve by itself by conservative management over a period of 2 to 3 weeks. So the drain can be placed as it is, and the nutrition has just got to be optimized. If there is any source of infection, maybe from the wound site, or if there is SSI is there, then I would like to add on some antibiotics, and that's it. So I will control them.
So you are basically, again, all students must understand that the two important things of any enteric fistula is nutrition and control of infection. And she has rightly focused on nutrition and control of infection. And control of infection, the markers are clinical marker, and you have to consider doing a total leukocytic count, and therefore monitor objectively whether the infection is on the rise or the infection is reducing. Now, I am your junior resident, and I asked Pranamita Di, I have read that I can add somatostatin, or I can add octreotide. Why don't you add it immediately? What's your take, Didi, on adding octreotide or somatostatin?
Sir, we usually, sir, octreotide is considered, or somatostatin analogs are considered to reduce the exocrine and endocrine function of the pancreas and liver.
Both exocrine and endocrine? 1 second, Pranamita, both exocrine or endocrine? Endocrine it can't, isn't it?
Right, sir. Exocrine function.
Exocrine function, yes.
Yes, sir.
So if you
Exocrine function.
Are you going to use it? Start it now.
Sir, there is no added advantage as such. The recent researchers have proven that there is no added advantage of adding an octreotide, but we tend to use it. Yes.
Why will you tend to use it if there is no added advantage? What is the data and the evidence on this? If you do not know, again, for everybody to understand, that there had been major trials on use of octreotide in perioperative leak. The European Association found that there is a benefit, and the benefit that they projected was reduction in exocrine function, but that did not actually extrapolate to what we call closure of fistula. So fistulas never close, but they told that the exocrine secretion reduces, and if the exocrine secretion reduces, management becomes easier. The American group found that there is no benefit, but there is a sort of criticism against the American group, because they told that when you are in Whipples is usually being done by highly skilled surgeons. In America, there is a strict guideline who is going to perform a Whipples. So naturally, they tell that most of the leaks are so minor leaks where giving octreotide doesn't help. So generally, if you are asked this question, the answer to the question based on evidence that there are certain trials or studies which suggest that there is reduction in the exocrine function, but it does not mean there will be closure of fistula. So prophylactic use is not recommended. You can use in such circumstances, but the level of evidence is beneath level 3. Clear? So you also told Pranamita that something called a grade A fistula or a grade B fistula. Would you like to elaborate what is a grade A fistula and what is a grade B fistula?
Yes, sir. Sir, there are 3 grades of postoperative pancreatic fistula. First is the very mild variety, that is the grade A fistula, also called as the biochemical leak. So there will be no infection in such patients, there will be no evidence of fluid collection on ultrasonography or CT scan. There is no sepsis, and we need not even if the drain is there, which is constantly draining the leakage, there is no need for any additional drainage or intervention for this patient. Only conservative management is adequate.
What is grade
For
B?
it to do. Grade B, sir, it is there may be a collection evident or may not be it's between the severe and the mild variety. So it's like an intermediate grade. There may or may not be a collection evident in USG or CT. Infection will be there. There is no sepsis though. There is no organ dysfunction. And this
And what is grade C then?
the grade C is the severe variety, where there is definitely foci of infection. The collection is there is a collection in the intra-abdominal collection, which is evident in USG and CT, which can also become like an abscess, intra-abdominal abscess. So this patients usually tend to go into MODS, multi-organ dysfunction, and eventually the mortality is much higher in this grade C variety. So
Okay.
they will need active intervention.
I would just summarize for the residents. Now there is A, B, and C. A, as she rightly pointed out, it is just a biochemical leak without any evidence of any other findings. B is once you have definite issues, like there may be intraperitoneal collection, there may be peripancreatic collection, there may be an ascites developing or the peritonitis developing, where you need to reposition the drain to drain the abscess. You might need certain pharmaceutical or pharmacological interventions. Grade C, and this usually goes for next 3 weeks. Once it crosses 3 weeks, most of the grade B fistulas, either they improve on intervention or without intervention, or they proceed to grade C. In grade C, there is development of multi-organ involvement and gross sepsis and gross organ failures. So grade A, B, C, there are people who divide it into B1, B2, B3. You forget about that. But basically A, B, C is something which a resident just need to remember. Now we have gone into the day 5. The drain output is increasing. Okay. So it's now 400 ml. The color remains the same. Okay. So what will you do now?
So if the patient is hemodynamically stable and this is a persistent fistula, I will just, and it's a controlled fistula, then I will just I will make the patient NPO. I will give intravenous fluids. I will, apart from if an FJ has already been made, I will try to optimize the patient nutritionally via that FJ. And if there is any foci of infection, I will do a total leukocyte count. If the count is not risen, then I will not. If the count has risen, then there might be a foci of infection. In that case, I will start on antibiotics. I will also image this patient to know for any localized.
Now, Purnamita, you made a statement in between that if I find it to be, I mean, it's a controlled fistula. How will you know it's controlled or not? So an imaging becomes the cornerstone at this point of time. So I give you choice. Are you going to start with ultrasound or you rely more on CT scan?
So ultrasound is an extension of a surgeon's clinical examination. So I will first go for a inexpensive ultrasound, and then if it is not evident, the volume is not, I am unable to understand or appreciate the volume and the location, then I will go for a CT scan.
Okay. Now, can you discuss the advantages and disadvantages of ultrasound compared to CT scan?
So advantages is it is inexpensive first. Second thing is that it is easily no, that is it's inexpensive, and it is it's a bedside procedure. It can be done, and patient need not be moved, and there is no discomfort to the patient. So the disadvantages would be, sir, if I have to see any collection in the now that the pancreas has already been removed, so the collection in the Morrison's pouch or all or the difficult areas which are not accessible, which are not easily visualized by ultrasonography. So I wouldn't be able to.
So let me again, Pranamita and everyone, if you are trying to understand whether there is collection inside the abdomen, if there's a gross collection, your clinical examination will tell ultrasound is just a formality, okay? But if you truly want to understand in such situations where you find a biochemical leak, you are clinically unsure, do not, for God's sake, trust on ultrasound. Why? Because you know the abdomen is going to be distended, the gut loops are distended. So there is a lot of air within the gut loops. If you trust an ultrasound, there will not be penetration of ultrasound. You will always underestimate the interloop collections. You would be not able to see anything in the retroperitoneum because of the distended gut loops. So when you are realistically looking at what is the collection, beyond just an extension ultrasound that you've done, always go for a CT scan, because CT scan only can delineate the interloop collections, major collections in the retroperitoneum. Clear? So your answer should be, I will begin with a clinical examination and an ultrasound, but I will definitely order for a CT scan because it has got a higher sensitivity and both specificity in delineating interloop collections, retroperitoneal collections. I have a question here, Pranamita. I would always prescribe a CT scan abdomen. Would you like to do a CT thorax? Is there any specific reason?
Sir, there could be the reason could be if there is any because the patient has had undergone a major surgery, he might have some collection in the subdiaphragmatic collection, and the patient might not be able to respire properly, might develop pneumonia. So
yes. So your answer number one, of course, is pneumonia. But you try to understand when there is a leak. The leak can be in the anterior part of the anastomosis. The leak can be in the posterior part of the anastomosis. If there's a leak in the posterior part of the anastomosis, that might lead to a retroperitoneal collection, which ascends up, leading to a mediastinitis. So CT thorax would be able to delineate the mediastinitis, and you might fail if you have not done so. Okay. Whereas the anterior leaks will be delineated better in CT scan abdomen. Clear? And if
yes,
you
sir.
have the facilities, I would not on the 5th day, but later on, I would add a CT angio to this. Can you tell me why would I require a CT angio in such circumstances?
So usually the post-operative pancreatic fistula results in corrosion of and erosion of the vascular epithelium, and this leads to formation of pseudoaneurysm in vessels like the hepatic artery, the gastroduodenal artery, or the superior mesenteric artery. So
which of these arteries, which artery you are mostly afraid of, which can actually erode realistically after Whipple's?
So splenic artery and
the closest one to the pancreatic anastomosis is the gastroduodenal artery.
Gastroduodenal artery, yes, sir.
If
Yes, sir.
it erodes, the first artery to erode is the gastroduodenal artery. The second artery to erode is the splenic artery. Hepatic or superior mesenteric are rare erosions. So erosions are mostly these two. And the way to understand is either you get a blood tinge thing coming out in the drain, or there is a sudden hypotension and the drain remains among the same. The best way to anticipate is to go for a CT angio at this stage, which will demonstrate the pseudoaneurysm or the erosion that is taking place. Clear?
Right.
So
Yes,
when you're doing a CT scan, let us once again summarize what are the important things I want to know. Number one, I want to know whether it's a control leak or it's an uncontrolled leak. An uncontrolled leak can manifest as an ascites. I mean, there is a generalized abdominal pancreatic collection spilling over. Number two, it can be a control leak. And number three, it can be an in-between leak. That means it's an indirect communicating collection. There is an intermediate cavity, or there are cavities at different places in the hepatorenal pouch or subdiaphragmatic place or the paracolic gutters. So if there is a definite leak which amounts to gross interloop collection, what will you do? The second question is, if there are intervening abscess, what will you do? And third question is, if this is a control fistula, what will you do? So these are the three situations which are possible. So let us take
Right,
situation one. When there is a generalized gross intraperitoneal collection, interloop collection, and the collection of fluid from each area demonstrate hyperamylesia, what are you going to do at this stage?
So if the first thing, I would like to resuscitate the patient hemodynamically. Once that has been done, I will plan to drain this intra-abdominal collection. If there is a dependent areas, if in dependent areas the collection, the pockets are bigger, I can use with help of interventional radiologist, USD guided drain may be placed. So the third thing that I will go ahead, if that is not sufficient, I will plan for re-laparotomy of this patient, and if I will try to go for a revision and repair, I will first try to evaluate the whole status of the abdomen.
So the answer is, if there is gross spillage into the whole peritoneal cavity, there is peritonitis, there is no point in wasting time on conservative methods like try to drain, etc., etc. You re-explore immediately. Okay? So you re-explore immediately, and what are your options after re-exploration after you have done a lavage?
After lavage, I will examine the stump, the pancreatic stump. If I will examine all the anastomotic sites. If there is any gross leakage from the pancreatico-jejunal anastomosis, I will go for a revision and repair of that anastomosis. If that is
if it is feasible, I mean, you find that you can read, you can obviously, but it's a soft pancreas, the whole gut has melted down. So in such circumstances, what can you do?
Sir, in such circumstances, it's a very dreaded thing to do, but a total pancreatectomy might be considered.
So you can convert it into a pancreaticogastrostomy. You can mobilize and put it into the residual stomach.
Yes, sir.
That is easier
Yes,
to do. Or number two, you can convert it into total pancreatectomy.
Yes,
what are the problems of total pancreatectomy? Because pancreas na raha to sab kuch to na raha, ho gaya kaam. But what would be the major problem after total pancreatectomy in post-perioperative period?
Pancreatic insufficiency, that is diabetes will be there,
so diabetes to वैसे ही हो सकता है. In so many patients you have diabetes. What's harm in managing such diabetes? You can always try with insulins, and insulins are going to take care of that. But what is special about the diabetes after total pancreatectomy? You don't know that.
I don't know, sir.
It's called a brittle diabetes because not only the insulin is gone, but also the glucagon is gone. So the patient will have two extremes. One is a massive hyperglycemia. The other end, the patient is going to have massive hypoglycemia because you don't have the regulatory mechanisms working. So it's very difficult to control a diabetic after total pancreatectomy because evidence or incidence of hypoglycemia is very frequent. Clear?
Right.
But that is
Yes,
also
sir.
an option. There is a third option you can do at this point of time. Have you heard of this called pancreostoma?
Yes, sir. A stent can be put through the major papillary duct, and the other end can be taken out of the uh, abdominal wall to make
And
exteriorize.
so one you can put in a drain, but that's unlikely to sustain because after some time the drain is going to come out. I mean that you pass into the tube. The other thing is that you can mobilize the pancreas and take it out like a colostomy into the main wound. Okay. So, but that's very difficult to manage because the skin excoriation is going to be huge one. But you have to put in a big wound manager to manage that. But in situations where you cannot do a revision, in situations where you cannot do a pancreatic or gastrostomy, in situations where you don't think a total pancreatectomy is going to help or the patient is too frail to undergo that procedure, you can do a pancreatic stoma as well. That's the fourth option that is available. Okay. So
Yes, sir.
we have looked into possibility one. Now we go to possibility two, that there are multiple collections in the abdomen here and there. What will you do in these circumstances?
Sir, in these circumstances, I will consider about doing a USD guided drainage of the collection, or I will go for relaparotomy and just lavage, close it and come
No,
out.
Pranamita, we told that if we are dealing with residual collections, peripancreatic, or we are looking at collections which are happening here and there. So in those circumstances, nature has already walled it off. So there is no point in going for a relaparotomy if you do not find in CT scan interloop collection, evidences of interloop collection. So you are going to drain it, and the best way of drain is not ultrasound guided, it is CT guided, because you can miss collections which are situated post-operatively. Okay, and you are going
Yes,
to
sir.
put in a pigtail if there's a big collection. If there are small collections, you can aspirate, but if there's a big collection, you need to put in a drain.
Yes, sir.
Clear? The third,
Yes,
of
sir.
course, is the possibility is it's a control fistula. So if there is a control fistula, how will you manage it?
So I will, if it's a controlled fistula, so the drain has to remain in situ, and we will take a delayed removal of drain has to be planned, and the volume replacement, intake output replacement has to be optimized, and nutritionally I have to build up the patient. And other than that, I don't have to do anything. So conservative management is sufficient.
Very good. So you don't have interloop collection, you don't have residual abscesses within the peritoneal cavity. It's sort of anastomotic lake which is directly communicating with the skin or through the vein and it's coming out. It continues for 6 weeks. When will be the time when you re-explore?
So after 6 weeks, if there is persistent, if there is no closure, like after 8 weeks, actually, sir, they said there are 3 school. So one is after 5 weeks, one is after 8 weeks. If after 8 weeks also it is not closing, then we will go for a exploration, sir.
Okay. Now I give you what would be the important thing to understand that this is the best time to re-explore. Okay. So in a delayed circumstances, after 4 weeks, you can do a pancreatic fistulogram, etc. And can you think of any procedure, which of course I have never done? If there is a well-defined tract, what can you do to close the tract? At least theoretically you can do. You can put in a fibrin glue into the fistula tract.
Yes,
There
sir.
is one tool which puts in fibrin glue and it seals automatically. What is the criteria? The criteria is not time bound. You have a definite plan what you are going to do. You are going to go in and do a pancreatic or jejunostomy. That's the way, only way. So for
Right.
that, you need to see whether the PD is getting dilated or not.
Hmm.
If the PD is dilated, then you go in, refashion and do a revision pancreatic or jejunostomy. If the PD is not dilated, then you are left with an option of converting it into a pancreatic or gastrostomy or redunking it, or you have to think, unfortunately, for a resectional surgery. So your guideline is based not on time, but whether the PD is getting dilated or not. So if the PD is dilated, you have a well set goal. But if the PD is not dilated, then you have the option of dunking either a PJ or a dunking PG, or you have to go, unfortunately, with a resectional surgery. Clear?
Yes.
Now I come back in the second scenario, a residual abscess, you have put in a drain, which is the commonest scenario. Now on day 22, suddenly you find that there is blood in the drain. What will you do?
I will first resuscitate the patient, then plan for a CT angiography for this patient.
Okay,
And
CT angio, you find that there is a bleed which is happening from the gastroduodenal artery. What will you do?
it's via any angiographic intervention, it will be very difficult to control a gastroduodenal artery bleed. So I will consider a re-exploration, laparotomy, and
No, it can be done. You can insert a microcoil inside. Okay, you go for an angiography, and then you actually go into a superior mesenteric artery cannulation, or you go up to along the superior mesenteric artery, you go into the celiac axis, and then from the celiac axis, you can take the route of the advance through the hepatic artery and place in a microcoil at the gastro. So you can do an angio microcoil insertion at the gastroduodenal artery. If it fails, the second line is re-exploration. But the answer to the question is, I am going to go for an angiography and an angio intervention in terms of placing a microcoil. It becomes easier if it's in the splenic artery, because in that case, you can go from above, very easily go in and insert a coil there. But if it fails, yes, you have to re-explore immediately, and you have to try, but it's very difficult, I tell you, to locate these aneurysms, pseudoaneurysms, and ligate, because the whole retroperitoneum is filled with clot. If you can deal it in an angiographic way, that's better done. Okay.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
So I ask you another different scenario. Now a patient undergoes a Whipple's procedure. There is a pancreatic anastomotic leak. Okay, and this is how you are going to manage. Now a patient undergoes a surgery for chronic pancreatitis, a pancreatic or jejunostomy, and there is a persistent drain output. What is the difference in these two pancreatic anastomotic leak?
So usually in chronic pancreatitis, as a sequelae of chronic pancreatitis, the pancreas become very fibrotic and hard. Usually the pancreatic fistula in a surgery for chronic pancreatitis is rare as compared to
but it can occur.
Malignancy.
Just try to remember, while you are doing an anastomosis for Whipple's, you take care by using either dunking, or you do it in ductal mucosa. So many techniques. But while you are doing a pancreatic or jejunostomy, you can do a single layer and nobody cares. Have you ever sent a drain fluid amylase after a PJ? You have never done so. Why? It's such a big anastomosis over the whole pancreas, and that's a small anastomosis at the head. Why?
So the secretion itself in chronic pancreatitis is reduced because of the fibrosis.
The exocrine function is gone. So nothing is going to be eroded. You send amylase, it will be normal, because there is no amylase left. It's a chronic pancreatitis over years. Okay? So if this leaks, then what will you do? If you have done a PJ and it is leaking, it's a persistent leak, what will you do in that case?
Sir, I will plan for a pancreaticogastrostomy first.
Why
And
suppose there is a leak, you have done a, MRCP, or you have done a CT scan, you located that there is a leak happening near the head of the pancreas. What can you do at this point? You can put in a stent.
yes, sir, I
You
can do that.
an ERCP very carefully and put in a stent across the anastomosis, and in 80% of the cases that is going to be reduced. You need not go inside and revise the anastomosis. Okay.
Right, sir.
Now I
Right,
give
sir.
a third scenario, which is a far more interesting scenario. A patient has got a distal pancreatectomy done. Okay.
Mhm.
And that
Yes,
is
sir.
for a lesion, a chronic pancreatic, and you have done a distal pancreatectomy. Now there is a leak. Okay.
Mhm. Yes, sir.
So, and what's the difference between a leak because of chronic pancreatitis after distal pancreatectomy? And what's the difference in the leak if you have done a PJ? Which one is more dangerous?
Sir, PJ
PJ, why not?
is more dangerous.
Why not distal pancreatectomy?
Sir, because the to activation for the activation of the pancreatic juices, it has to be the flow of the direction of the flow of the pancreatic juices is towards the duodenum. In a distal pancreatectomy, it will be draining into the duodenum, and in case of PJ, sir, it will come out of that leak and yes, sir.
Let me give you are putting your imagination in the right stretch, but let me help you out. Now, when
Yes, sir.
you are doing a distal pancreatectomy on the background of chronic pancreatitis, there will
Yes,
be
sir.
chain of lake appearance, and therefore
Hmm.
there will be multiple ductal strictures. So
Yes, sir.
anastomosis is not going to heal whatever you do if you have done a distal pancreatectomy. So people in these circumstances, people usually when they do a distal pancreatectomy for a chronic pancreatitis, they would actually use a jejunal serosal patch after distal pancreatectomy. But it's not the same while you are doing it for a cystic neoplasm of pancreas. You can close the jejunum, there won't be a leak because there is no proximal block. But while you are doing it for chronic pancreatitis, there may be a proximal block, and usually there is a proximal block which would not allow the fistula to heal. So in those circumstances, it's a good practice to put in a jejunal serosal patch right at the beginning. Clear?
Yes, sir.
So the far more dangerous will be a distal pancreatectomy compared to a longitudinal pancreaticojejunostomy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Sir, no
Yes,
other
sir.
questions. He had answered wonderfully. A big clap for her.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
But one thing, Pranamita, what are the
Yes,
predictors?
sir.
What are the predictors to assess that the patients are high risk for developing pancreatic fistula?
Sir, there is a predictive score which is based on the first the pathology, the texture of the pancreas, and duct diameter,
Yeah.
and the intraoperative loss, blood loss.
Yeah. Yes.
So based on that, these 4 things, a predictive score has been devised, and if there is like a percentage, like if the score comes to a total of 2 or 3, then there is a
Okay,
chance
so
of
this is a
around
scoring
6%.
system. Is there in relation between the technique of your PJ versus development of fistula? Anything related to that?
So a lot of studies and a lot of comparative studies are there, but sir, a meta-analysis of these studies have revealed that there is no relation of the method of the technique of anastomosis with that of the leak. There is no relation, sir.
Is there a superiority of PG versus PJ?
Yes, sir, that is there. There is a superiority of PG over PJ because the superiority in terms of the leakage.
Again,
Yes,
this is
sir,
also
PG leak or
again a
PJ.
controversial area. There you'll find some
Okay, sir.
studies where PG is claimed it superior, but other studies has refuted that. So, but Dr. Sarkar has taken you nicely through this whole scenario. So, if you know up to this part, there is no other question left behind for a word round scenario. It's a fantastic session. So, any comment
Thank
from
you,
Dr.
sir.
Maiti? Dr. Maiti?
Nothing to comment more. One thing I can say, Paramita, you have done excellent. Your answering, and Diptendra, nothing to say about his excellency in teaching. He has done wonderfully. She has carried her and all the students to a nice explanation of everything in relation to the pancreatic fistula following operation. Thank you, Diptendra. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Dr.
sir.
Acharji? Dr. Acharji, any comment?
Actually, I fully agree with Professor Maiti. Professor Sarkar has discussed all the aspects of management and with reasons, with explanation, enough explanations why this particular procedure should be done. So, in fact, there is only this is just to appreciate this teaching, and I also appreciate that the student she has prepared quite well and had quite fair idea about what should be done and what is the situation like. So, congratulations. Thank you.
Before we close, sir, I would like to place on record that Professor Anadi Acharya, I have not seen him that he is present here.
Yes,
He is considered one of the father figures of pancreatic surgery, and whatever little we are doing today, it's courtesy this gentleman from whom we have learned the tricks of pancreatic surgery. Thank you, Anadida, being there and doing this.
Yeah, Ananda is a regular teacher in this morning session. Dr. Acharji and Dr. Maiti is a regular teacher in the morning session.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
students also. Teacher and student both. We're learning many things from these sessions.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sarkar.
Thank
Thanks
you,
a lot.
sir. I will take a leave, sir.
Okay. Thank you.